All right, let's see if it works. Cool. All all right, everyone, I think we made it finally. Sorry, big sorry from our side. So we had some technical issues. Also, we're still having some technical issues. We can't really stream the sound from everyone else that's here with us. So we had to kind of improvise a bit. I think today the original plan was to walk you guys through, give you some updates on the Soba Art Challenge. We also have Nadia, our art director here, and Aaron, our 3D artist. They wanted to kind of give you an update on all the like submissions and yeah, on the winners so far. So we had to change that and move that part to Discord, which basically means is that we are going to start with the live game creation as step number one. So yeah, I was super happy yesterday. I think I was joining Nick and some others in our Discord, and we had some fun playing some games together. And there were some questions popping up of how to build certain things. So I want to take the opportunity and show you that today. So basically, before we start, maybe we wait for some others to join the stream as well. Um, I don't know if you have any questions. Of course, feel free to type in the chat. I think Irina will kind of, yeah, Walton, welcome. I hope everything will work fine. We had some audio issues for those who just tuned in. So we had to move the art challenge part to Discord, and we will do that at the end of the stream. And we're going to start with the game creation part. So maybe we should wait for some others to tune in. I guess Irina, have you posted it on the Discord? So do people know there? All right, all right, all right. Um, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe from my side, already as a little teaser. So I have seen all those submissions for the art challenge. I think, yeah, big thanks from the whole team. Was super amazed to see all those like creative submissions. Some people really did nice paintings. I think some even modeled some 3D characters. So I think it was super hard for Nadia to choose the three final candidates for the community voting. But I mean, since she will talk you through that anyway, I don't want to spoil her too much on that. Um, so let's start. I would say we had a few questions popping up yesterday in our Discord live session. So one of them was coming from the monster. So the monster asked can we basically how can we build like an end game condition that's based on a player's score. So I'm going to show you that. Let's open a new game for that. I don't know, Monster, if you're with us. If not, I guess this piece is going to be recorded, so you can have a look later on. So yeah, let's start. So the idea is to have something that basically, yeah, that lets that kind of would let the end game when a player reaches a certain score. So I think that's pretty straightforward. So what we can do is, yeah, just add something here, and then I think we have the coin already that gives you a score, so we don't need to build that from scratch. Um, cool. So let's start. Let's see if the coin works. Okay, gave me 5 points, but the game is still running. So if we want to let the game end, if someone reaches 5 points, the way we do it is, um, I mean, you can build it on any object, doesn't really matter. But what we are going to do is we want to constantly check whether a player has reached a score of 5 or more. So the way to do it is we say the periodically, that is basically the start node. And what it does, it activates every nth second. So we can say, yeah, maybe we should check every second. So now what we want to do is every second we want to check if a player has more than 5 points, or 5 or more than 5 points. So the way to do it is, first of all, we need to ask for all the players. So we can say get all players. And then we want to check if the score, so that we can do by getting the property from the player, get the player score in. So every second we're now checking every player and its score. And what we want to do is kind of let the game end when it's 5 or more, right? So the way to do it is we need to compare the current player score, and that we can do by going into the processing part of the nodes. And under logic, we find, no, 1 second, sorry, not under logic. Under compare, we find a couple of different variations for the compare node, and the one that we want to take is equal or greater than. So that means, and then it basically compares two values. And the first value under number A is the one actually representing the current player score, and number B is what we want to compare it to. So here we can type in a number like whatever, let's say 5. And that doesn't work yet. So what we also need to do is, since this compare node works in a way that it outputs either true or false, we wanted to only continue when it's true, right? So when the player score is 5 or bigger, then we want to have on the true or false port of this node, we go to the player switch. So that's, I guess, under logic now. Yes. So we'll select the player switch. As you can see, the player port is red. So that's saying that something is missing here. So what we need to do now is to kind of connect the feedback in the players. And that's basically, we got the players here. So let's see if I can do it. Right. Okay, so we did it. And then basically we say if it's true, so if the player has a score of 5 or higher, then we want to end the game. And that is a result node, which you can find here. And that should actually do the job. So now, if we press play, nothing happens. If I now run into the coin, yeah, it ended. I mean, it brought me back to the editor, but that's how you know that it was basically working. So we can also quickly maybe add a second coin. So that, let's say this coin should only give 3 points. And then I can press play again because the condition is set to 5, right? 5 or more. So if I run into this coin, I have 3 points. The game is still running. And now if I go in here, it makes it 8 points, and then it basically finishes the game. So that's how you can very easily kind of build a condition or like a system where the game ends when a player reaches a certain amount of points. And of course, you can also tweak that and change that. So you can also make it like if a team has reached a certain score, or I mean, whatever you think the condition should be. And then, is there any other questions in the chat? Otherwise, I would just go on with the second request. So I think we had another question, which was basically how can you build a checkpoint or respawner? That was a bit more tricky. So, but nevertheless, let's try it. Let's open a new game for it. So where do we start? So basically, the way we can do it right now is, let's move the starting plate here. So right now what happens is every time you die, you would basically respawn at this starting position, right? So one thing we want to maybe add quickly is a mechanic that lets you kind of die. So let's just take this bottle of poison here, and then let's say, okay, if the player runs into this bottle, then we basically want to set the player life to 0. So we adjust the healths. Since you start with 100 healths, we just reduce it by 100, which would basically set it to 0. And since if your life hits 0, you basically lose a life. So we can test it. Oh, wait a second. Let's go to the player, and let's set the amount of lives to 10. So now I have 10 lives, but if I run into this thingy, oh, yeah, I actually lost a life, right? But nothing else happens. So, okay, 8 lives, nothing happens. All right. So what we want to do now is we want to basically say, okay, let's build a checkpoint. So let's say, take this platform, and let's assume this would be a really tough to reach area in an obby, for example. So we want to kind of make it easier. So once you've reached it, and then if you fall down or die for whatever reason, you would respawn here instead of the very beginning of the game to not frustrate the player too much. So the way to do it is, yeah, we can take this one, and then we say, since it's a checkpoint, so the player has to reach that platform, we want to basically build it with the on collision with player node. So when the player and this platform touch or collide, so basically when the player reaches the platform, we kind of want to know, first of all, we need to work with the position of the platform. So what we can do is we basically from the object, which is the platform in this case, we try to get a property. In this case, we want to get the object position. And then we want to send this object position with a message, or basically with an event. So that's a result node. So we can say send an event, and instead of sending a plain event, we can send the position as a payload. So it means basically, yeah, think of a message that includes the position of this object, but yeah, it doesn't need to be that big of a radius, so maybe just send it to 10. We also need to kind of enter a subject for the message so that we can, when we build additional logic that's triggered based on receiving this message, we also have to connect it to the same subject. So let's just call this one checkpoint. So when the player jumps on the platform, we're going to receive the position of the platform, not of the player, but of the platform. And then we also send an event that includes the position of the platform. And this event is called checkpoint. So what we do next is we go to the player, and then we say, all right, on event, and that's basically the counterpart. So on event, and that we also have to call checkpoint to make sure it's basically listening to this event that we just created. So now this event is basically triggered when the player and the platform meet each other, and then we basically send the position. So we can go into this event and then go to the position payload, and we want to keep that position. So we can say store under store value. We say store position, not retrieve, but store. But now we also need to know, when is the player losing a life. So before we continue with that, we basically just go in and we add another behavior to the player, which is, so every time the player is losing a life, which is actually it's an available start node. So here you can see it activates when a player loses a life. That's exactly what we want to do. So we take it, and then we can say whenever the player is losing a life, we can, actually we can send a message. This time I think it's fine if it's plain. And we just call it reset. So this basically, and actually it doesn't need to have a big radius, so we can set the radius of this event to -1, which basically means that only it will only be sent to this specific player, and no other object would be able to listen to it. So that's a bit kind of maybe saving the resources. So every time the player is losing a life, it will send a message to itself called reset. And yeah, the reason why we did it is so we can now go in here to the other one that we just started. So here we have the position of the checkpoint, right? But what we want to add now is another on event node. And then we can say, we called it reset, right? So every time the player is losing a life, we want to receive the player position. Oh, wait a second. So we connect the, yeah. Oops, 1 second. We're going to fix that. So every time the player is losing a life, we will check, and then we will basically now in the position port here, we basically have this new position only if the player reached this checkpoint. Because if the player reached the checkpoint, we now have this checkpoint event, which was including the position. So it means we can now work with this new position and set it back into the player. So that would be a result node. It would be in the player set position. And I think the only thing we now need to do is basically connect it back to the player. You can see the port is red. Oh, come on. All right. And that should do the job. So if the player is going to lose a life, they will send a message called reset. And that's basically the trigger. And then when the player reached the checkpoint, the checkpoint was sending another event including the position. So if this position was received, this new position, then the player would basically be sent to this new position after losing a life. So let's test it. So I have 10 lives. I don't know if you see it. If I run into the poison, okay, I lost a life, nothing happens. But if I now run into this thingy here, and now if I run now into this thingy, you can see I spawned inside this plate and I have those glitches. Yeah, let's fix that. So the reason why this is happening is, so basically the position we are sending to the player is the center of this platform. And so you're going to be spawned directly into the center, which is not good. So there's two ways how we can fix it. So I can show you both. Way number one would be to go into this platform. So we go to the behavior of the platform. And instead of just using the get position node, let's do it quickly, really delete it. We can use another one, which would be the get relative position. So not object position, but relative object position. And then what we can do here is we can define a certain offset. So the second value would be about the height of the spawning or of the position, in this case spawning. So if we set it to 2, and then we have to connect the relative position port with the send position event. And now the player should actually spawn 2 units on top of the center of the platform. Let's give it a try again. So we need to first reach the platform, and now, yeah, we get spawned on top of it. There's a second way. Maybe if you're interested, I actually prefer the second one, I guess. So you could also use. So we have one asset here, which is basically what we call like a trigger box, or like actually it's an object that it's removed like once. So you can see it in the editor, but you can't see it in the game, and that's also pretty handy. So you can basically take that one and then build the collision with player kind of logic on that part, and then move it wherever you want. So it also is maybe helpful to have some additional visual indication where those spawn boxes or spawn positions are. So if you go with that, then you can manually move it a bit up, and you don't have to use the relative object position. But yeah, that's just a different way of doing it. And then maybe, yeah, I think what also could make sense is to let the player know that they reached the platform, because I mean, this right now looks very much like a regular platform, especially if you have multiple of those. So what you could do is, yeah, there's several ways. So let's say you go in here, we have this on collision with player node, right? And then the object is sending its relative position with the offset of 2 on the y-axis, and then the colliding player, we can also here work with that part, and then we can say show a message on the HUD of the colliding player. So that should be under score. No, where is it? One second. Text elements here. So display text on HUD. And then we can say, I mean, I guess it's more for the demo, that checkpoint reached or activated, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, and then we can show it for 3 seconds with no delay. And you can also, of course, add sounds or like particle effects to it, but just try it out. So there you go. That's how I would know that I reached the platform at a checkpoint. And then, yeah, you can also do it, of course, do it once with the switch, so that doesn't get triggered every time you reach it. Yeah. Is there any other question in the chat, maybe? Nope. All right. Sorry, I can what? Yeah, in case you're wondering to whom I'm talking, I have Irina with me, but because of the audio issues that we mentioned, you won't be able to hear her. So anyway, I think there's no more questions for now, so we can go on. And yeah, I think next up would be the announcement of the winners of the Soba Art Challenge. So for that, unfortunately, we can't do it here. We had to we need to ask you to go to the Discord channel. I think Irina already posted it in the chat. So maybe, yeah, I can see it. So yeah, please follow the link in the chat on Discord. In a few minutes, we will announce the winner of the first Soba Art Challenge. I think Nadia and Aaron will be with us. So thanks for joining us today. Hopefully next time we're going to fix the audio issues, and then we can run the entire session on YouTube. Yeah, thanks for joining, and see you on Discord. Bye bye.